Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are glad you are here, and just by showing up, you're already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to present two creative geniuses who, among other things, produce unique live events marrying film and live orchestras, which result in amazing experiences for audiences globally. These two have big brains and huge imaginations, and I promise you will leave smarter and more enlightened than you arrived. Before we get started, please let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people in the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible during the interview. And also, this is very important. Please make sure your chat is set to address everyone, not just the host and speakers. I want to thank our program sponsors, for without their support, we could not do this for free. Special thanks to MedJet, Turnkey ZRG, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Tennessee Brew Works, and Better Than Booze. So let's get down to business. Today we welcome Richard Kraft. Richard is the co-owner of Kraft Engel Management, one of the world's leading agencies specializing in representing film, theater, television, and video game composers, songwriters, and music supervisors. He has directed and produced shows at major venues, including the Hollywood Bowl, of such musicals as Disney's The Little Mermaid in 2016 and 19, Disney's Beauty and the Beast, La La Land, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, with all-star casts including Billie Eilish, Sarah Bareilles, Rebel Wilson, John Stamos, Catherine O'Hara, Titus Burgess, Darren Criss, Ingrid Michaelson, Leah Michelle, Zoe Deschanel, Kelsey Grammer, Ty Diggs, Finn Wolfhard, and Weird Al Yankovic, just to name a few of them. Prior to starting his own company in 1991, Richard was an agent at ICM and started his career working with several of his musical heroes, such as Jerry Goldsmith, Elmer Bernstein, and Henry Mancini. He once ran Reese Saraband Records, I hope I didn't butcher that too badly, where he executive produced over 150 soundtracks. Welcome, Richard. It is an honor to have you here today.
Hi, thanks.
And joining Richard is my good friend, John Kinsner. John is Chief Executive Officer, co-owner, and founder of Black Ink Presents, a leader in turnkey solutions for music performances and experiential entertainment, including live-to-film shows where a full orchestra or band performs in sync with a film or other media. John's newest project, called Evil Dead in Concert, will slash its way across nearly 50 U.S. cities this fall, offering fans a thrilling and chilling live-to-film spectacle featuring the cult classic horror film as a live ensemble performs the newly reimagined original score by composer Joe Loduca. The tour follows on the heels of his recent collaboration with the Jim Henson Company on Jim Henson's Labyrinth in Concert, a North American tour that John launched in the fall of 24 and enchanted audiences in more than 70 cities through May of 25. With an early history of making bootleg mixtapes for his friends and working in arena operations from the age of 16, it is no surprise that John has emerged as one of the most skilled producers and creatives in the entire industry. It is my pleasure to welcome these two rock stars to our platform today. Take it away, boys.
Wow,
John,
thank you.
Evil Dead, 50 cities are going to be slashed.
It's totally just slashed beyond recognition.
That is fantastic.
We're so excited. The actual public on sale is tomorrow, Friday the 13th.
Oh, who could ask for anything more?
You know, when we our publicist was like, I think this makes a lot of sense, and I was, yeah, you're probably right. So we should go on sale.
Well, what I like so much is that we have in common is we are nerds who are fanboys who we don't like things, we love them. It's not like,
Deeply.
oh yeah, I really like Evil Dead. It's like we are deep into it. And but then we take it a step further of making up, well, wouldn't it be crazy if propositions? And
Absolutely.
so it's like, well, why shouldn't Evil Dead be a concert? That makes perfect sense.
You know what's great about like what we've done over the years together, and I totally love, and I tell people this all the time, like, I think the word immersive is really kind of like a very, it's really
Overused.
overused, but everybody like it understands like what that is now. But we were doing immersive things before it was even a thing.
I was doing immersive things in elementary school.
That's true. That's so
Like
true.
I was a very bored child. So like during recess, I'd gather friends and go, why don't we do a production of Hansel and Gretel? And I'll play Gretel, by the way. And then I'd go to the teacher and go, can we stage a show? It's like, what show? The one we just made up. So I've been doing this for a very long time. I am waiting to come back to portray Gretel somewhere. So if it's ever an opening in one of your shows.
I love that so much because it's like the essence of like the whole Mickey Rooney bit. Like my
Yes.
dad's got a barn and we're gonna put on a show and I love that. And I think
No,
that's
because
part of what connects us is like we also love classic Hollywood and we love those characters and we've really bonded a lot over the years on those sensibilities.
well, I think all roads lead to Disneyland, which
Yeah.
is the original immersive. It was like, okay, there's a movie Peter Pan. You're not
Hmm.
watching the movie Peter Pan. You're getting in a pirate ship and flying for about 4 minutes in Peter Pan. So you were starting in 1955, people were being immersed into the movie Peter Pan in a completely different way.
Absolutely. You know, it's fascinating, just on like a tangential Disney thing.
Everything's a tangential, buddy.
Everything is. I'm actually reading the book right now about C.V. Wood. Are you familiar with C.V. Wood? The guy that the Disney brothers hired to help develop Disneyland, and then Walt and Roy had a falling out with him, and he's been scrubbed from Disney history.
He scrubbed. I don't know about him. What kind of stuff was he doing?
So he was actually brought in to help develop the park and develop the rides and develop the operational mechanics of how the park would work. And he was the guy that developed Six Flags Over Texas.
Okay,
And
was he involved in Freedom Land?
yes, he was. And I'll send you a link. I'm actually listening to it on audiobook, but it's absolutely fascinating. And they interview Bob Gurr about it, and he's like, "Listen, we don't really talk about that guy."
He's the
And
Bruno of him of
basically,
Disneyland.
yeah, he's 100% the Bruno of Disney. And I had absolutely no awareness until I came across this book on Spotify, and I said, "I've never even heard of this guy."
You
And
know who was Brunoed, early Brunoed in the
who?
this Pinto Colvin. Do you know who I'm talking?
Oh yeah,
Oh, you would because you're a Goofy guy.
totally.
Yeah, so he was the voice of Goofy and like Grasshopper and the Ant. He was the voice.
Yeah.
And then he got on the bad side of Walt and then went away and then became Bozo.
Yes.
Literally, he became Bozo.
Yeah, that's another great like reference. And yeah, like Walt's relationship with Goofy and Goofy's always been like an outsider in the Disney canon, you
No, the
know.
biggest outsider is Clarabelle. She
Uh,
does,
yeah,
yeah,
very fair. Yeah.
very
Uh,
fair.
yeah.
But
Yeah, Tom, the Bozo the Clown.
I think someone should write the book, The Brunos of Disney. And everyone who pissed off Walt and then got sent out in the cornfield somewhere.
And a whole chapter about the union.
Oh, that is a collective of Brunos. It wasn't like Walt carried a grudge or anything.
Not
Wow.
at all. Wow. He was still like what during the McCarthyism,
Oh,
outing of the Soviets, he was still complaining about the
no,
union.
I mean, people always say, well, what would Walt do? most of the time I don't want to do what Walt would do because it
Yeah,
involves sending people away.
totally. And there's just such a stark contrast between Walt the man and Walt Disney, every America's uncle, you know.
Yes. Well, like most uncles, there's something weird going on. And so pulling us back to what you and I love doing is we take stuff we love.
Yeah.
We didn't make it to begin with. You did not make Labyrinth, allegedly. Am I correct?
No, I was not consulted or asked to participate in the creation of Labyrinth.
How old were you
Unfortunately,
when Labyrinth was made?
4.
So
3
you
when
did
it was in
not.
production, 4 when it came out.
Okay, so you were Jim Henson did not consult with you,
He did not. No, I did not get to submit a storyboard.
nor comment on David Bowie's cod piece.
No, and it's so funny that was actually an intentional choice by Jim to
Yes,
like, like, I want this thing to be huge and profound.
yes. So you didn't make Labyrinth, but
No,
you've loved it forever.
my
And
whole life.
then how do you celebrate? Because it's really about celebrating the very thing you love. And it's like show and tell at
Yeah.
school. I got this thing and I want to tell you about it and pass on my passion for it. But what does it actually mean? Say someone's never seen what Labyrinth in concert is. What is it?
Yeah. It started with like this genesis, a nugget of an idea, as so many of your projects do, and the things that I'm working on. And speaking of fandom, I've always been a huge fan of Lou Adler and his work, Cheech and Chong, Rocky Horror Picture Show. And when I think about Labyrinth and I watched Labyrinth, I always felt that it had this same capability of becoming like a spectacle in the way that we go out and celebrate Rocky Horror.
Hmm.
People coming in costume, people singing the songs. There's saxophone moments in Labyrinth. There's saxophone moments in Rocky Horror, and just in like my creative internalized soul, I was always like, I think this could be that, or some version of that. And I also am a huge David Bowie fan, and it occurred to me after you and I started working together that nobody's really ever heard this music on anything except their television speakers.
Hmm.
And there weren't songs that Bowie would perform at his concerts. And I always felt that they were great songs. Now, you and I have differed over the years in what we feel are great songs from films.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to break the news to you. You're wrong. I mean, we will, to my dying day, I will not be in support of what's that song from La La Land?
Start a Fire, baby. The John Legend song, Start a Fire.
I mean, I will give you credit. Usually, when you obsess about something, there's a lot of overlap, but because of our generational difference and our taste,
Yeah,
sometimes we do not agree.
it's
But
fair.
usually, when you're carrying on about something like, I had to listen to you for years talking about a Goofy movie,
Hmm.
the world caught up. It
Yeah,
was you were on the forefront of that.
yeah. And I'm still a huge believer in that. And you did me one of the greatest services anyone could ever do in that fandom. You introduced me to Goofy.
How did? Oh yes, Bill
Yeah,
Farmer.
you
And it was
introduced me
like
to Bill Farmer, and him and I and his son Austin, and we've all become like great friends.
he, he's he, he's not the Pinto Colvin of of Goofies. The but what did we meet on? Was it on?
It was when I was working with Disney, and technic being the technical producer and tour manager for D Capella.
Yes,
And you had come out to a show, and they were out at a show, and you literally just grabbed my hand and took me right over to him in the lobby.
that's great. Well, I think one of the I think the traits that we have in common, just endless deep dive into esoteric stuff that delights us,
Yes.
a fearlessness of let's put on a show. The audacity.
The
And I
audacity.
we have worked on things where the budget is $1.98 and up to $2 million to put on a
Yep.
show.
Yep.
And they're kind of the same. Because my dad used to throw really elaborate pirate parties for me when I was a kid.
Oh,
Now,
really?
I thought they were elaborate. I now realize it was cardboard fish and butcher paper ships. But he just didn't have the money. But
Yeah.
he was like, how do we make a good pirate party?
Hmm.
And one of the things was the invitations he would make, it was handwritten and he would burn the edges. So I saw my
Oh,
dad
yeah.
working it. And then he was going to do a wax seal, which was that was most of our budget.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make it from Captain Hook, but they didn't have an H in the stamps.
Oh.
So they had a Z. So it was from Captain Zook. So so some of the stuff, like Nightmare Before Christmas, is so cool to be
Yeah.
able to take a movie that people love and go, what's another way to experience it?
Yeah.
And it's grown. The first time we ever did it was we were told you can't do a live concert with singers in sync with an entire movie,
That's
as if
right.
Earth would fall off of its axis if that occurred.
Yeah.
And then now it's commonplace.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know if you knew this or not. So when we did The Nightmare Before Christmas for the first time in 2015 at the Hollywood Bowl, and it stands out as like one of my favorite memories and one of our greatest accomplishments. Everyone said you can't do this, it won't work, but we had Danny and Catherine and Paul and Ken, and everything was aligned from the talent to the movie. I don't know if you knew this or not, but that show was named by Billboard magazine as the show of the year.
I didn't know that.
Yes, and it won over Rolling Stones and Taylor Swift, which were also two other tours that I worked on that summer.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, we were named the show of the year by Billboard
I
magazine.
outswifted Taylor Swift
Then,
then. Yes,
that was the 1989 tour.
you know what I remember? We had a very limited set dressing for the bowl stage. The Hollywood Bowl stage is really large and
Very
very
big.
long and
Hmm.
very high. And most
Hmm.
of the audience is way back and can't even see what's on the stage.
Yeah.
But I did spend way too much money on some Christmas trees that
Yeah.
no one could see.
That's the thing about like designing to scale, and we should have like from our love from Walt, we should have had like a better understanding of designing to scale. But
Oh,
yeah,
or our love of Spinal Tap was Stonehenge. It
yeah,
was very much.
it was a mini Stonehenge Christmas tree that sat all alone on a little
It
island.
was sad, but one of my favorite things, I think we're the first two people to ever do something, when we did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Hmm.
I mean, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the real one.
Yeah.
The we for the car dealership of Veruca Salt, not Veruca Salt, Violet Beauregard, we had the parking lot dancer inflatable guys. We are the only people ever on the Hollywood Bowl to use them as dancers, I think.
I know. I would definitely agree with you. Like that was like it was very K-pop of us to have these quick inflatables, again, blending genres and that's I've always admired your love for the character and the story of Willy Wonka. And it was out of that love of that story and that character that you took this disaster event in Scotland
Yes, in
and turned it
Glasgow
in
last year.
Glasgow and turned it into a musical that you ended up fucking going to Fringe Festival with. Like, how did we haven't talked about it. How did that come
Okay,
together and how did you get to Fringe Festival?
so like most of the civilized universe, for about 4 days, my social media feeds had endless images of this Willy Wonka chocolate experience in a warehouse in Glasgow that overpromised and underdelivered. An expression that always catches my ear. It's like,
Yeah, of
okay,
course.
that's going to be interesting. And then the police were called because the thing was so bad. That's a really bad review when the people call the police on your show. And then there was an image of a sad Oompa Loompa that went viral. It looked like she was in a meth lab. So I stared at all these elements. I go, that's a musical. It's just because I love most of my favorite things are about con men. I love
Yeah.
Paper Moon. I love Music Man. I love the producers. So I love Greatest Showman. So
Hmm.
there's a, going back to Walt, what is the difference between Walt Disney and the guy who did Firefest? Both of them raised money on a thing that did not exist. They were both done on incredibly unrealistic time frames. The only difference, one had good taste and
Yeah.
one pulled it off and one didn't. But the
Yeah.
fact Firefest sold out, it was a good idea. It just shouldn't have had those grilled cheese sandwiches. So when I saw this thing, this Willy Wonka, it was like the best of all worlds. It's Willy Wonka and miserable children complaining. And it's like, so I what I did is I got a team of songwriters and we just talked what would be a good idea for a song. Would this be a good idea? And then the idea was to make music videos, post them of all 16 songs, and
And
then
I
figure out what to do.
and I was captivated because you did it in such a fun way. You were dropping one song per week.
Yes.
And I was just like, this is fantastic.
Until I turned into the Firefest guy, or I turned into one of the guys from the producers. Someone mentioned the Fringe Fest in Edinburgh, and it's like, let's submit ours. And
Yeah.
then we got booked for a month long run of a show that did not exist.
And so did
So
you just literally like put together a treatment and send it to Fringe Fest? Like what was the submission process like?
here's the punchline: anyone can get into Fringe Fest. You just have to find a venue. And so
Mm,
a venue can be the back of an Uber, or it could be a theater. Now, I lucked out. I got a really good venue. And there were like, I think over 3,000 shows going on at the same time.
yeah, it's
But
huge.
this is where life imitates art. I announce a show that doesn't exist and then have to reverse engineer what are we actually doing? Because there were no characters, no script. The
Yeah.
songs were still coming in. And in typical Richard fashion, I bring in a director who's great. This
Phenomenal. The cast of people you had in this show, every day I was just like, how is this? Because it was such a fun idea, and you're such a polarizing person and wonderful person to spend time around, especially in the creative space. But like you had an all-star cast and an all-star director.
yeah, it was. Look, I was P.T. Barnum. It was like let's put on a show. Then we get there. Oh, so what was originally going to be actors holding a binder with the script, singing at music stands, turned into sets and
Yeah.
costumes and choreography, and then scratch and sniff golden tickets so the audience could smell the show, which we
Yeah.
did when we did the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
But then our cast started getting COVID. So it was like every day we would have to rewrite the show based on who was available to be in it.
Just live immersive theater, you
Oh
know?
yeah, and it was a pretty polarizing thing.
Hmm.
I the audiences legitimately loved it, but boy, did I get I'd never gotten a bad review. I hear I was in Billboard for Best Concert of the Year. Well, if you read the reviews of my Willy Wonka show, woohoo!
Really?
Oh, they hated me. I was the loudmouth American Hollywood guy coming to the Fringe Fest. One review criticized me for passing out playbills. They said it was ostentatious. How dare me hand out free pieces of paper listening to people in the show?
You should get the your favorite of those reviews and put them on a shirt and just
I was actually going to do a an entire commercial with nothing but bad reviews. So so that was I'm really sorry you weren't part of it because it was so up your alley.
yeah, I mean, we've done so many things over the years, and we've also done some things apart, and I would have loved to have been a part of it, but I was also just so happy for you and rooting for you, and I love what we've talked about it. What I love about you is something I love about myself. You go all in. You don't half-ass it. And
No.
when you're pursuing an idea, whether it's going to build the house or burn it down, like you're going to do it.
Yeah. What's the I just said to a friend yesterday, they got rid of debtor prisons. So why not just throw everything into something? What's the worst that happens? You're a laughing stock, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Or and okay, my day job is I represent composers
Yeah.
and songwriters. And I remember someone saying to me, I'm really worried about my next show because everyone loved my last show. I go, buddy, no, they didn't. There's not one thing that everybody loves. You just happen to be hearing from the people who loved it. If you
Yeah,
want me to get some haters, I can have them call you up.
for sure.
And thinking you're ever going to solve everybody's going to like it,
Yeah.
nah.
Yeah. No, and I've definitely learned a lot of that from you and being in meetings with you over the years and being around you when you've been pitching ideas to studios and to brands and to composers. Until I had started doing projects with you, I had never seen anybody like pitch to a studio. And I just remember sitting there in the early days of like Nightmare Before Christmas and then Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, watching you pitch studios on their own
Oh,
material
yeah.
and convince them to allow you to have some leeway and some creative license to do new things. And it's always
Well,
stuck with me.
the one that intimidated me is I had a meeting at ABC to do Little Mermaid Live and Beauty and the Beast Live for ABC.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the television industry. Nothing, nothing. And I'm just pulling stuff out of my ass. And I had a partner, Dawn Solaire, who had some credibility.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
between her, where they go, well, she probably is the grown up who knows what's going on, and me just making stuff up, it's crazy. And what's the worst that can happen? Perfect example. When we did our Nightmare Before Christmas at that soccer stadium, where were
Oh yeah. But Bank of California Stadium
yes,
with the
bank spelled
puppet.
with a C.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
creeps me out. I don't like seeing that. But Catherine O'Hara normally plays Sally when we do Nightmare Before Christmas live, and she was not available. And so it's like, okay, there's not another Catherine O'Hara.
No.
She's a genre of one. She's beloved. She's the original voice. Anyone who takes the role is going to be compared to in a negative way. So let's go a whole different direction. We're at a stadium. Why don't we treat this more like a rock show?
Hmm.
And then it was like, maybe Billie Eilish is a fan of Nightmare Before Christmas. And my partner, Laura Engel, called up the manager. And
Yeah.
like within a day, Billie Eilish said yes. So it's like, don't be the one no you should never get is from yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I tell you this all the time, but when we met, I was just working for AEG and I was just like a rock and roll production manager for a big company and really hadn't kind of like found my stride and hadn't really found what I was super passionate about. And when we met in 2012, it was on the US premiere of the Danny Elfman Tim Burton show.
Mhm.
That was your idea, but the genesis of that idea was, from, like, a box set that you and Laura put together, is that right?
Yes, we somehow had a meeting at Warner Brother Records where they were explaining at the time that record sales were not happening.
Mhm.
And streaming was starting in, blah, blah, blah. And they go, the one thing you can't stream is merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
And so box sets, you're selling something that you could, a physical thing you have to have. And so we pitched, what if the 25th anniversary of Danny Elfman and Tim Burton working together is coming up? Why don't we do a box set? Well, I got carried away, ended up with a box set that cost the customers $500. It it had 16 CDs of stuff. It came with a hardback book. It came with a zoetrope on the top of it with strips of art that you could spin. You pushed a button and it played music while the thing was spinning. And then because Danny Elfman hates converting his CDs to his iPhone or whatever, we wanted it all embedded in something that you could do an easy download into your computer.
Yeah.
So we did a skeleton key that you USB key containing all the music on the 16 CDs. But again, it's just making up a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
And it is a bit of a if you build it, they shall come. But we sold 3,000. We sold out. There were 3,000 of them, and at $500 each. And it's just a big old box. And then it's like, well, why isn't this a concert?
Right. Right. And and so that's where we meet. I don't know if you like actually remember, but the very first time I met you, you were running around in a Pee Wee Herman suit.
Well, I do that a lot anyway. But yes,
That was really a special night, because also one of the things you had to overcome in that project was Danny hadn't performed in a long time.
18 years since he had been on stage.
And
18
he was
years.
and he was still like, he was still like, I don't know if I can do this, want to do this.
But
What
it's
was
like
that
you're
like?
Jack Skellington. Just go out there and be Jack Skellington. And it was amazing because technically it would be almost impossible to teach someone how to sing Jack Skellington in synchronization with all the phrasing and music changes. But since Danny wrote the music and sang it, he could make all the micro adjustments needed to do it. But I think the theme of all is let's name it's easy to talk about our triumphs. Let's talk about something that just crashed and burned.
Okay.
You got one?
So this is a triumph and a crash and burn all in the same.
That's a beautiful package.
So in October of 2019, I miraculously fell into this opportunity to build a show and be the promoter of a show with Elton John at the Greek.
Right. Rocket Man.
Rocket Man. And that was an enormous success, a huge triumph. People were like going nuts for it. So I kind of was like, I think I could be a promoter, maybe. Like, I think promoting might be like kind of easy for me. Maybe, I don't know. And fast forward to 2022, we were coming out of the pandemic. I was really antsy to do something. And I decided to license and put together Love Actually in concert in downtown Los Angeles at what is now the Peacock Theater.
There's something called the Peacock Theater?
It used to be, it's where we met. It was originally Nokia Theater. And
it's now called, how long's it been the Peacock?
Couple years. So now it's lovingly referred to as the Cock.
Or the P. There's a market for each.
Yeah, there's probably a crowd for each. So I was like, you know what? Love Actually, great Christmas movie. It does good business in other markets because we work on it. I was like, I'm gonna license it and promote it and put on a show. And it also happens to be my now wife's favorite movie.
Because it's a great movie and a great wife.
It's a great movie and a great wife. And I decided that night would be the night that I was going to propose to her. And so we get the venue, we get the band together, we put on the show, proceed immediately into losing $250,000.
It's just a march straight to it.
just a dive straight to the bottom, from the moment we. from the moment we put it on sale, it was obvious we were not going to make, we were not
So
going to
you
recoup.
proposed in the middle of the sinking of the Titanic, basically.
Yeah, basically, just as the ship was about to crack in half, I
Yes.
proposed.
Will you marry me?
Yeah, I said, you know what? We need a great story to come out of this night.
Yes. But look, now we're on some podcasty thingy, and you get to. I live to tell the story. That is
Yeah,
why I do most stuff.
yeah.
My son and I, from the time he was 10 to 15, we went around the world to research the world's best roller coaster because
Hmm.
we're going to write a book called The Father-Son Guide to the World's Greatest Roller Coasters. And when things went well, there was no story to be told.
Right.
It's boring.
Yeah.
But like the time I got on the freeway heading the wrong direction, almost had a head-on collision, that's a good story. So what our mantra became was this will be good for the book. And if
Yeah.
you live life that you're going to be writing a book, you want crazy shit happening because the rest is boring.
Right. It's the drama.
Yeah. And again, I haven't ended up in jail yet.
There's always time.
Well, there's career jail, that's for sure.
For sure, especially in our business.
Yes. And so, okay, we're going to go back and forth naming esoteric things that could be turned into a something.
Okay.
You go first.
Um, so I mean, so just starting with kind of like a low hanging fruit. I'm still of the opinion that like I can turn a goofy movie into like a legitimate concert experience.
Well, it's going to happen somehow with or without. This thing has exploded.
Yeah, it's gonna happen, and I am going to be a part of it. You've heard it here on Smartest People in the Room first. I am
And
going to be a part of this.
that's good. One of my things, I want to get 100-piece orchestra and have people submit what would you like to hear 100-piece orchestra do? Like, I want to hear the Cars for Kids jingle
Hmm.
done with 100-piece orchestra.
I love that. Okay, here's a kind of a nerdy one that I've been
Oh,
like.
as opposed to these other straight
Yeah,
ones.
right.
I just
Yeah.
said Cars for Kids with 100-piece orchestra. And you go, well, now I'm going to do the weird one.
So, kind of like Andy Kaufman is kind of like my inspiration for this, but like I want to somehow put together an experience where we all get together on a Saturday morning and watch cartoons and eat cereal.
Oh my God. So I have a great friend who every Saturday morning watches 3 cartoons. So now we start watching them, and now we have like battling playlists. And you know how you and I argue about stuff? She defends Yosemite Sam, who's never once been funny to me.
No, does not really deserve defense, but he's
Yeah. Now, Foghorn Leghorn is funny.
yes, bit problematic, but funny.
the the so cartoons, what cartoon would you tell the world, meaning anyone watching this, that their life would be better if they had seen this cartoon?
Oh man, I mean, there's especially for me, being a kid in the '80s and the '90s, but also like a huge fan of like Hanna-Barbera. Um, but I come back to like, okay, there's one cartoon that I watched a lot as a
Robin of Seville,
teenager.
someone who wrote, and they're right, and someone who wants Schoolhouse Rock with a 110-piece orchestra, that's a good idea.
That's a killer idea,
I may
actually.
be stealing that one for sure. But you were going back to defending something that's not defendable. If you say Captain Caveman, I kill you.
No, no. I mean, the question is like, what cartoon could everybody watch and actually be better for it? And actually, I think Arthur. I don't know if you liked or are familiar.
The aardvark?
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
I'm too old.
Okay.
I'm too old.
Um,
Do you know the Looney Tune called, I think it's called Feed the Kitty, with
oh
the
yeah.
dog Mark Anthony who has
Yeah.
little cat and things gets killed and made into a cookie in the shape of a cat. And he
Yep.
takes it and puts it on its back and walks around. I don't think there's anything more touching in the human experience than that.
That's true. That is charming. Another one, I don't know why, because there's like some some now frowned upon things in it, but Johnny Quest.
Bum bum da little da da ba da bum ba dum bum. Okay, deep dive. That was
Yeah.
written by Hoyt Curtin. First of all, a man whose name is Hoyt and Curtin. You gotta love him. He wrote all the Hanna-Barbera themes, but he's
Hmm.
only listed as one of the three writers because somehow Hanna and Barbera are now songwriters. But just I mean, if all you wrote was Meet the Flintstones
Yeah.
or Scooby-Dooby-Doo, I mean, this guy's a genius. But
Yeah.
Johnny Quest may be the coolest TV theme ever written.
I would agree with that. You know, they rebooted it when I was a teenager, and I remember like my dad would come by like, "What's this shit?" You know, like,
Well, he was probably wondering what was the relationship between Johnny Quest's father and Race Bannon. It was like, and where did Haji come from? He just shows up.
he just shows up and he's just like the token sidekick. You know.
Yes, but uh, okay, what cartoon do people like that you hate?
Um, a cartoon that people like and that I wouldn't say hate, but like
You
don't
never hate anything. You're
yeah,
nice to me.
I'm not yeah, hate's not really a part of my thing. But one that I like and don't get, which is interesting because I really like the voice actors in it, is Bob's Burgers.
Interesting. That was a bold statement because you're supposed to like Bob's Burgers.
I'm supposed to, but it's one that just doesn't hit with me. And I think subconsciously it's because I'm a huge fan of Archer
Hmm.
and H. John Benjamin, who voices the characters in each. I think mentally it's hard for me to hear him voicing a character that's not Archer because I so love that entire show.
Well, what you don't know is I am currently writing a musical about cartoon voice actors.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, because my theory is the greatest actor of all time is Mel Blanc
Yeah,
because he's Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and Foghorn Leghorn and Porky Pig and plus he's doing the scenes with himself.
yeah,
Sylvester and Tweety,
yeah,
it's the most schizophrenic performances. And you think of the best actors, Marlon Brando.
yep,
He's always plays Marlon Brando, basically.
yeah,
Humphrey Bogart's pretty much Bell Blanc's 100 different things,
yeah.
and nobody knows who he is.
You know, I love on YouTube watching old episodes or old interviews on Carson,
Yep.
and the Mel Blanc ones are in just a complete league of their own.
Yes, and the man physically doesn't look like anything you think he would be.
You would no,
I would not have cast him as Mel Blanc.
you could like
And he's,
walk into Musso and Frank and see him sitting there and be like, "Who's this bum?"
yeah, yeah. And do you know he was in a horrible car accident and they recorded episodes of the Flintstones in his hospital room because he was Barney Rubble?
I didn't know that. I mean, I knew he was the voice of Barney Rubble, but I didn't know that they like were so desperate for content they went to his hospital room to get him to record.
Yeah, no, it was it. I'll spare the world this story. I was going to tell about a producer who forced one of my clients who had collapsed on the scoring stage to finish writing the music in the hospital room. He had a keyboard brought in.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's this business though. Because so many of these people that are on these projects or on these shows are so scared that they're going to get replaced.
Yes. Well, one of my crackpot theories, of which I have multiples, is there are only two factors in the universe. One is a column that's called abundance and love, and the other side is lack, and it's not hate, it's lack and fear.
Yeah.
So everything goes through one of those filters. And if you have a mindset, you and I both have, There's no shortage of good ideas. There's no shortage. There's a way to make things happen. And we love, it's like it's an outward thing. And the flip side is lack. So everything is like you're in prison eating your meal off the tray, trying to make sure nobody gets to it. And it's not that you're filled with hate, you're filled with fear.
Yeah,
And for
very
better
much.
or worse, you are one of the most fearless people I know.
Sometimes to my advantage and sometimes to my detriment, you know.
But you gotta, every coin has two sides. I'm gonna just rattle off cliches for the rest of this because cliches are a dime a dozen.
They are.
Well, there's six of one, half a dozen of the other. I can do this. I can keep going. And then there's ones that contradict each other. Which one's true? It's never too late to learn, or you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
I guess it just, you make a great point in terms of the cliches. I subscribe to it's never too late to learn, but I look at you as as evident of that, because when we met in 2012, you were actually embarking on an entirely new direction in your career.
Yes, it was like I started directing shows with no background in directing shows. And I think I got it because no one noticed I was doing it, or someone thought somebody else had signed off on me doing it,
Hmm.
waiting for the director police to show up and go, "Can we see your license to be doing this?" And I was in my 50s, mid 50s when I started a brand new career. Um, but the consistent thing is it's just loving shit and sharing the joy with other people. And then
Yeah,
you and I came up with, why don't we digitally map the proscenium of the Hollywood Bowl and start projecting onto it? And then we got the company who did the castle projection shows at Disneyland to do our shows. And it's like now we do these shows where it's now almost commonplace for the
yeah,
Hollywood Bowl. But
yeah.
we were like nut jobs who thought of doing it.
Do you know that the Hollywood Bowl uses the map that you and I created for those projections as just their standard map now? When people come in and say, "Oh, we want to do projection mapping,"
Are we
they're
getting
like,
paid for that?
I don't know if we made that deal. You know?
I, I guarantee we did not. But bragging rights are worth a lot. So from now on, when
Absolutely.
I go to Hollywood Bowl and I see something projected, it's like, yeah, that used my digital map.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
We showed these people how to swing.
Yeah, but what I love is when we did La La Land, we didn't realize we needed four projectors for the images and we had two. So nothing
Oh
was
yeah.
actually well lit or in focus.
It was a steep learning curve because we nobody had done it. Nobody could give us like any like good direction on how to do it. And we, for all the things that we were not projection mapping experts at that time.
Shocking.
It's weird, right? And if you look at it now, it seems like such an obvious thing to want to creatively accomplish in that space. But in 2015, 2016, the projectors were not as good as they are now. The understanding of like 4K, 6K, 8K files, it wasn't as commonplace as it is now, how to render those things. And we were just like, yeah, a couple projectors and bada bing.
Not a big, and focus is overrated.
Focus is overrated. You're here to see the stage show, not the projection mapping.
Yes. And wait, somebody is really upset about the notion of an orchestral version of Cars for Kids. Stacy, let a man have his dreams.
But that's art, isn't it? Like creating a reaction.
Yes. Oh, I'd rather be booed than no reaction. The
Yeah,
sound of crickets is the worst.
yeah. What I love, and is in talking about like the direction in your career. When I met you, that's when I actually finally found the stride in the direction. I had accumulated all these different skills in the live event space, but really didn't understand how or where to focus them. And by working with you for 10 years, and you helping me realize that I should start Black Ink and I should really double down in this space. And, and suggesting that I had maybe found my thing, which was absolutely true. I think you knew this, but technically you were like my first client.
Yeah, and I didn't, part of it, bluffing is good. You know, it's like you did not come off as if you never did it before. And it's like, I did notice you have tattoos that say punk on your nipple. So I thought something's a little not normal. But I also thought maybe every person who does what you do, it's like you're in a club called punk. And you all get the tattoos. By the way, Lynn just said a quote from Coco Chanel that I've never heard. Bad taste is better than no taste.
That's the most Coco Chanel thing ever.
I thought it was from the movie Coco when I first reading this. And then it was like, and I didn't even read Chanel. I thought it was Coco Channel, which was like spin-off of Disney Plus.
Disney would do that. They would be an all 24/7 Coco channel.
Again, we're going to look at variety a year from now. Disney announces 24-hour Coco Channel.
For parents that are tired of their kids asking to put it on.
Yeah. Okay. We didn't really get going on our things that are so weird that we should do something with them. So, I'm trying to. Oh, Jess yesterday was talking to a friend. How did Howard Ashman look at the movie Little Shop of Horrors, the 1960 black and white movie, and go, "There's a musical." That takes some vision. And now retroactively, you go, well, of course it was a musical.
Yeah.
You can't unlearn what we know about it.
Yeah.
But it was an insane idea.
Absolutely. And for it to like have the success that it did, and like it was, and I think it's part of that thing when you are really just starting out, and something that like I can speak to now that I work with Sony on developing IP in the live space. You look for these things that are undervalued, or other people just like don't see it, and you're like, this is my thing. Like I can do something with this. And like a great example of that is here, you know, everybody wants to do something with Spider-Man. Everybody wants to do something with Ghostbusters. But when I said I want to do something with Labyrinth and Evil Dead, it was like crickets. There was like tumbleweeds rolling in the background,
No, but that's it. My early days as a film music agent, I worked at an agency, and there were two types of clients I represented, three types. One was great composers who are not currently hot. It's not like they weren't good anymore. They just weren't in demand. So
Yeah.
it's like polishing up a jewel. I didn't make the jewel. Jerry Goldsmith was a jewel. It just
Yeah.
needed to be displayed correctly. Then
Yeah.
the second category was people who are up and coming, just emerging. So that was like Danny Elfman's my first client, because it was like, oh, there's an emerging guy.
Was
And
he really your very first client?
yes, the first one I signed. And the agency I was working at would not let me sign him initially. Because
Really?
at the time, all he had was Oingo Boingo and a cult movie called Forbidden Zone that his brother Richard directed. But I listened to Oingo Boingo, it sounds like movie music. And they were like, what? Then he did Pee Wee's Big Adventure. That did not involve me. And they go, isn't that the guy you wanted to sign? I go, yes. And they go, well, now you can meet with him, but we're coming with you. So we have a lunch. And I said, so what kind of movies would you like to do? And he goes, I love horror, fantasy, and sci-fi. And they said, you do not want to do movies like that. You should be doing movies like Terms of Endearment, which was the big movie that year.
Yes.
And Danny's line was, not only should I not score it, I would probably projectile vomit watching. But the third category, and this is the one that plugs into what you were talking about, there were composers who were gems, but they weren't known how great they were. And
Hmm.
nobody was circulating. So I went through our roster of people that the agency represented, and my eyes popped when I saw the name Basil Polidorus, who he did the music
Oh,
for Conan the Barbarian, one of the greatest scores ever written.
ever,
And,
ever.
but he was not hot. So I just needed to keep talking about him. And he ended up, I was very proud of it. I got him RoboCop. And it was like, he didn't have to get to be a better composer. He just needed somebody to believe in him and have as much enthusiasm about him as I would if he was the biggest composer in the world. Because in my mind, he was.
Yeah, those Conan films are just they stand today as some of the best comic book films that have ever been made.
Well, one of the things is John Milius, who directed the first one, believed in it.
Yeah.
All that you have to, if you're going to do Conan, that entire mythology you have to believe in. And Basil, when he was scoring it, to him, it was like, I am touched. I have to write a piece of music that best represents the power of mankind. That's a big assignment.
It really is.
Yes. And now most film music is, I need to not get in the way. I
Yeah.
need to be wallpaper that nobody notices, which is not my cup of tea.
I remember watching those films as a kid and literally, when Thulsa Doom's troops are trotting around, like being intimidated
Yes.
because of the themes that he wrote for that film.
Oh, it's unbelievable stuff. And it's like I like at this point of life, now that we have YouTube and Spotify, anything we reference, we are about 15 seconds away from being able to demonstrate to somebody else.
I know the amount of times I'm just like, oh, hold on, check this out, check this out. I'm just like
Yes.
chasing people, like, you have to hear this, you have to hear this, you know. Um, that's one of the great things about the on-demand generation right now. Everything is at our fingertips. And for people like you and I who are always thinking and tinkering and noodling and being like, oh, what was that theme that got written for, Chariots of Fire or
Yes.
whatever it was? Like, you can just pull that stuff up immediately. And maybe to the detriment of some artists and the monetization world, but for people like us, it's an amazing time.
No, it's like the ultimate smorgasbord.
It
It's like
is.
it's a smorgasbord built in a buffet in top of a feast. It's like you want Swedish meatballs, you want Italian meatballs, it's like everything. Do you want pork meatballs? But you can just get anything, including the movie meatballs. So
Which is a fantastic franchise.
I meatballs the one in the camp, right?
Yeah,
With Bill Murray, right?
yeah. It's like it's Porky's, but not.
Yes. And Elmer Bernstein wrote the score, and it has a song called Are You Ready for the Summer? That was my
That's
version
right.
of it, which somebody right now could go to YouTube and find the song Are You Ready for the Summer?
Oh, and I do adore that. I mean, because we're such connoisseurs of pop culture and the fabric of it, the music, the actors, the producers. I feel you and I are very alike in the sense of I would always watch the credits. I would always read the liner notes on the albums. I would look at who's producing. I would look at who is sitting in on the sessions.
Yep.
And as a kid, I knew like if John Williams was scoring this film, it's going to be a banger.
Well, I got an initial interest in film music, and my dad would take my brother and I to, I grew up in Bakersfield, and there were 5 thrift stores, and
Hmm.
every Saturday we'd go on a treasure hunt, and my dad would buy us any record we wanted because they were a quarter, and
Yeah,
I would buy anything that's had the word original soundtrack. And
yeah.
after getting a few hundred of these, I noticed the ones written by John Barry were better than the ones written by somebody else. And that I educated myself. And then I anything that said original cast album. So I had all these cast albums of shows I never saw. And back in those days, there weren't extensive liner notes telling the plot of what
Sure.
these songs were. So I just made up my own plots. So I'd see the actual show It's like, my version is so much better than this.
I love
But,
that.
but
And
it
it's
is a lot of found art and
yeah.
found things like Charles Phoenix. I don't know if you follow him,
Oh
a guy
yeah.
who would go to thrift stores and find other people's slides,
Yeah.
then started seeing patterns with them, and then put on a show of other people's Christmas slides with
Yeah.
great narration. I love when people take a thing that's sort of laying there and
Yeah.
find a new way to configure it.
Yeah, I love that level of thinking and that level of artistry and that level of repurposing. I think that it's like really, really an art within an art of doing that
Yeah.
stuff, and his stuff is fantastic.
Well, my son, now I get to do the bragging about my son portion of the day, started a company with the actor BJ Novak called Chain, which
Mhm.
answers the question, what if Chain food was made by a Michelin chef?
Yeah.
So he's, what would a good McRib taste like? And it's all found stuff because culturally, we all love chain food.
Yeah.
We come, no matter where we come from, we've all been to a cheesecake factory, which my son, gave an interview to the New York Times of why Cheesecake Factory is the best place for a first date. And the answer was, it's a little classy, but not that classy.
Right.
So you're not taking your date to Denny's, but you're not going somewhere intimidating. There's a menu that's 80 pages long. So you're going to find something to eat.
Yeah.
And the main part is everyone has an early Cheesecake Factory memory. So
Yeah.
you've never been on a date with this person. You can break the ice by talking about what's your favorite cheesecake, which would always, for me, be one with Oreos in it.
That's a solid selection.
Thank
Um,
you.
so wrapping it up, just kind
Yeah.
of like looking to the creative future. You and I've done theater shows together. We've done amphitheater shows together. We've done arena shows together. We've done stadium shows together. What do you think is like your personal next creative frontier?
Cardboard boxes. We sit in cardboard boxes, a big refrigerator box. It's intimate.
Space
Okay,
helmets.
now you're pushing the budget. That is so typical of you. I was keeping things cheap with the cardboard box, and then it's, oh, we need space helmets. Come on, John.
It's always
I
a no till you ask.
yes, personally, I think we've peaked on the novelty of watching a movie play with a live orchestra. That
Hmm.
is now you don't even care that the music's being played live. It's the communal experience of watching a movie together. So that I understand, but I think that's largely played out.
Hmm.
I think it is I want to have things that are more intimate and one-on-one. I
Hmm.
was in London and saw a show called Bum Bum Train, which
Hmm.
was an interactive experience for an individual. So you're taken through different environments and experiences, but there's nobody else. It's all being played to you. It's the
Yeah.
most cost ineffective thing ever made. It literally has a cast of 400 people in it. And the audience, the most they can put through it is 75 people a night. But skipping the fact that makes no economic sense, for me to spend an hour and a half where I'm being taken from location to location, interacting, improvisational on my part,
Hmm.
made me think how much I enjoy. I had an experience that only I had. No one else is
Yeah.
ever having this, but I can then compare notes with other people who have had the experience, but we didn't have to do it at the same time. So, how
Yeah.
that translates, maybe cardboard boxes and helmets, I don't know. What do you think the future is?
So, I mean, for me personally, creatively, the thing that I am looking at and the thing that like I want to be a part of and it's something that I want to make happen and I've been lobbying here at the studio so far unsuccessfully, but it'll happen is I very much, especially after working with you and Danny Elfman and Ludwig Göransson and Alan Menken and seeing the renaissance of picture live with film, I actually want to be a part of a film that is intentionally cut and made for a theatrical experience, going back to the days of early cinema with a live organ or a live accompaniment. And that's how the film is actually made and presented.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do
Let's
it. You
meet at
heard it here.
Disneyland. I'll get us into Club 33 and we'll brainstorm and this thing will exist. As long as we can use a 100-piece orchestra playing the Cars for Kids jingle, we got it.
We got it. We got it nailed down. But that's definitely something I want to be a part of is figuring out how to reintroduce that style and that medium to the cinema experience.
Well, if it feels more not rigid, if there's an
Yes.
improvisational aspect of the musical performance, as
Yep.
opposed to we're playing the exact same thing that was already recorded and we're
Mhm.
just doing that live. Okay, I'll see you at Disneyland.
Let's go. Let's go.
Tom, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom.
I am giggling listening to this, guys. This has been absolute genius. There's so many nuggets of gold in this conversation. Glenn Friedman said it great. He said, great energy in here today. The positivity, the imagination, the best thing about you two guys is you are fearless. I commented in the chat earlier, it's like you live by the mantra of hold my beer,
Yep.
which I admire and respect so much. So thank you for indulging us today. This has been magnificent. John, you were so spot on bringing Richard as your guest. This is just incredible. So thank you. To the audience, I promised you that you would leave smarter and more enlightened than you arrived. I guarantee you that we delivered on that today. And with that, I just want to say thanks again for coming and be nice to everybody. And I am off to Bonnaroo.
See you at the farm. Thank you, everybody. Bye, Tom. Bye, Richard.